Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here. If you're a focused learner trying to figure out exactly how to secure Meals on Wheels for a senior, you are in the perfect place. Today, we are mapping out the ultimate roadmap for navigating senior meal delivery. Let's start right here. Are you totally stressed, trying to make sure an aging parent is eating well? Or maybe you're just worried sick about them eating alone every night. Look, we completely validate how overwhelming caregiving can be, especially if you're trying to manage it from miles away. Making sure our beloved seniors have access to nutritious food isn't just about avoiding hunger, it's about preserving their health, their dignity, and their independence. Proper nutrition can be a completely life-altering intervention. So stick around, because we're going to cover everything you need to know, from the basic qualification criteria to how you can get your loved ones enrolled today. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to demystify the whole system using a 6-part roadmap. We'll cover the Meals on Wheels mission, exactly who qualifies, the step-by-step application process, understanding costs and funding, meal options and customization, and finally, some incredibly useful caregiver tips and best practices. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the Meals on Wheels mission. Before we get into the pure logistics, you really need to understand the sheer scale and purpose of this incredible network. Founded way back in 1954 in Philadelphia, their core mission has always been to support senior independence by bringing nutrition right to the people who need it most. And today, a staggering 2.2 million seniors are served every single year across the U.S. It's this massive, decentralized safety net of food security, powered by thousands of community programs and an absolute army of dedicated volunteers. But what's truly fascinating, and maybe you didn't know this, is that it's about so much more than just the food. A study out of Brown University found that these daily volunteer visits actually reduce hospitalizations by catching health problems early. We like to call this the benefits beyond the meal. You know, for a lot of homebound seniors, that delivery driver might literally be the only person they interact with all day. That one brief daily interaction combats severe social isolation and acts as a vital wellness check that literally keeps seniors out of the hospital. Moving right along to Section 2, who qualifies for service? Now, if you're thinking, wow, this sounds exactly like what my loved one needs, your next question is probably, okay, do they qualify? While specific local guidelines can wiggle a bit, there are core baseline standards that almost all programs follow. To qualify, the recipient generally needs to be 60 years of age or older, they must be medically homebound or disabled, they typically lack in-home caregiver support for daily meals, and they need to reside within a specific local delivery zone. Now, what's really interesting here is that term homebound. It usually means they require significant physical assistance just to leave the house. If they can easily hop in a car or grab a taxi to a restaurant, they likely won't qualify. To figure this out, care managers use specific clinical scales. They look at basic activities of daily living, or ADLs, things like bathing and dressing, using what's called the CATS index. But for meal delivery, eligibility heavily focuses on instrumental activities of daily living, or IADLs, using the Lawton-Brody scale. IADLs are basically the more complex tasks you need for independent living, specifically cooking and grocery shopping. If your loved one is really struggling with those specific IADLs, that is a massive indicator they'll qualify for assistance. Next up, Section 3, the step-by-step application. Look, bureaucracy can be a total nightmare for caregivers, right? But I want to reassure you, the process is actually highly structured if you just follow the right steps. Here's your straightforward action plan. Step 1, locate your specific local provider. Because the network is so decentralized, you've got to find your exact geographic match. You can literally just call the National Elder Care Locator at 1-800-677-1116 to connect with your regional area agency on aging. Step 2 is compiling your documents, and Step 3 is completing the initial assessment. And a really key point here, absolutely anyone, you, a social worker, or a doctor, can start this referral. You definitely don't have to wait for the senior to do it themselves. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what you need to expedite that whole onboarding process. You're going to want to have these essential documents ready before you even pick up the phone. Proof of age and residency, like a driver's license and utility bill. You'll need their primary care doctor's full contact info. You absolutely must have documented dietary restrictions, like if they need period foods or a diabetic diet. Have a current medication list ready so they can screen for drug-nutrient interactions. And finally, while income usually isn't a strict barrier to getting service, having financial evidence, like if they're on Medicaid or supplemental security income, can actually establish priority placement if you run into a wait list. Which brings us to Section 4, understanding costs and funding. So let's address the most common anxiety for any caregiver. Is this going to be way too expensive? The crucial point here is that the average self-pay cost is incredibly affordable, usually just $6.50 to $7.75 a meal in a lot of areas. Let's put that into perspective for a second. A study in Minnesota showed the average annual cost of living in a nursing home is a staggering $111,000. For around $7 a day, you're providing essential nutrition that helps keep a senior safely in their own home. It is quite literally an incredibly cost-effective intervention. But what if you just can't afford that self-pay rate? Do not worry. These programs are designed so no eligible senior is ever turned away just because they can't pay. They combine federal funding from the Older Americans Act with local grants to subsidize the costs. A lot of local programs operate on a sliding fee scale or even just a voluntary donation model, maybe suggesting a tiny $2 to $5 donation per meal. On top of that, Medicaid waivers or even certain Medicare Advantage plans might actually cover the costs entirely if you qualify.
All right, Section 5, Meal Options and Customization.
We've talked logistics, so let's talk about the food itself. As a caregiver, you definitely have options if there are specific clinical needs. Traditional Meals on Wheels usually does a daily hot delivery with basic dietary customizations using that sliding scale we just talked about. But there are also private and Medicaid-funded alternatives out there, like Mom's Meals. These alternative providers often ship frozen meals in bulk and offer highly specialized, medically tailored diets. We're talking strict renal, diabetic, or pureed menus. Some of these private options even guarantee meals free from MSG or use packaging without harmful chemicals like BPA. The bottom line is, if traditional delivery doesn't fit your loved one's specific medical diet, you absolutely have other pathways to explore. And finally, Section 6, Caregiver Tips and Best Practices. We want to proactively address the biggest systemic challenges you might run into and give you some practical, actionable workarounds. And a quick, special note for the roughly 13% of Americans who are long-distance caregivers. Managing this from afar is incredibly tough. You have to build a localized safety net, set up local emergency contacts like neighbors or local friends, ensure your loved one has a wearable emergency call button with fall detection, utilize technology like video chats for daily check-ins so you can actually visually assess how they're doing. Oh, and if your loved one is a Native American elder, definitely look into Title V programs, which are specifically designed to provide culturally relevant meals featuring traditional foods. Before we wrap this up, here is our mandatory disclaimer. Please remember that local resources, funding, and processes vary a ton depending on your geographic location. Always verify all the information, guidelines, and availability with your local area agency on aging. Furthermore, always consult a healthcare provider for advice tailored to an individual's specific medical and dietary needs. Well, that brings us to the end of our roadmap. We've covered the mission, the eligibility criteria, the application steps, the costs, the meal options, and how to navigate the roadblocks. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. What is the very first step you will take today to secure your loved one's independence? Whether it's calling the elder care locator or just gathering up their medical documents, take action. Keep learning, keep advocating, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.